All right, everybody. It is 10 a.m. sharp Eastern here. I want to thank everybody for joining us today for the webinar. We are going to hear some. We're going to hear some stories from veterans who have re-entered the civilian career path, and they're going to share some tips on how they did it, how they handled the transition, and how they were helped to find these positions in Florida. I want to thank everybody for joining us. This is officially Veteran Appreciation Month in Florida. I think it's the first one. Governor DeSantis signed that in earlier this year. But Veteran Appreciation Month isn't just 1 month in Florida; it's 12 months. We got 1.4 million veterans in the state. We have a wide array of benefits and tools to help veterans succeed in their businesses, whether they're building their career or launching a business. Florida stands alone in supporting veterans pursue those passions. So as Veteran Success Month, we've gathered 4 folks here from around the state. They come from various sectors, and they will share today, some tips like it can be challenging separating, and we want to make it as easy as possible, Veterans Florida, by providing you services and also sharing some insights from these gentlemen here. I'm going to introduce them real quickly. We got Craig Burnard, who is the military liaison for Learning Alliance Corporation. They're in the telecom world, and I've had the pleasure of meeting Craig and seeing him in action at Learning Alliance, and it's a really great operation and very veteran focused, pay it forward for veterans. So Craig, appreciate what you do, appreciate what Learning Alliance does as well. And then we've got Michael Harvey's here. Michael Harvey is an entrepreneur. He went through the Veterans Florida Entrepreneurship Program. He is a graduate of the program. He went through our partner, Veterans Entrepreneurship Institute here in Central Florida. He's the CEO and founder of Octanium Corporation. And we will hear a little bit more from him shortly. Thank you, Michael, for joining us. And we got Drake Ladner. He's an assistant program manager with ESA South in the Panhandle. He is a SkillBridge success story. I think everyone here probably knows about SkillBridge, the DoD program that allows you to gain experience in your last 3 to 6 months of service. So Drake's going to tell us a little bit about that. And Drake, appreciate your time as well. And then last, but certainly not least, I got Adam Ogburn out here. He's in Milton in the Panhandle. He's currently a field technician with IFAS, which is a super partner of ours, helping folks get some training and find careers in the agriculture field. We also have a separate program. Adam got into this through SkillBridge, but we do have a separate program for ag, which we partner with IFAS, and we'll share some contact information we'll show you some contact information for everyone here. So if you don't have to feverishly scribble down some notes, I'll give you an email so you can follow up with us later. So let's kick it off. We're going to go around. We'll go around everybody with the same question here for the first round, and really just want each of you to talk about your experience briefly, your service experience, how long you were in, what branch, and all that. So Craig, we'll start with you on that.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I'm not used to going first, but that's fine. So my name is Craig Burnard. I retired last year from the Army. I was a brigade command sergeant major at Fort Irwin, California. So I was medically discharged from the Army and got sent to Florida. So I'm not sure how much of this story do you want me to tell, because as a command sergeant major, I can literally take up all of this time.
We don't need to go that deep. I think we can, and you're going to have an opportunity to share more insights later on. So, thanks, Greg.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, we're glad you're here. Michael, tell us a little bit about your service experience.
Yes, how you doing, everyone? Good morning. Michael Harvey here. I was in the Army, E5. I served from 2002 to 2007. I never stopped working, supporting, brothers and sisters. I continue to work for the DoD. I can't wait to share the story on how, the transition went and to see if it helps.
We appreciate you joining, Michael. Looking forward to hearing more. Congratulations on your success. I know you got bright times ahead of you too. All right, Drake Ladner, Assistant Program Manager at ESA South. Like I said, Drake's on the road to New Orleans right now, but appreciate you joining us. Drake, tell us a little bit about your time in.
Hey, nice to meet everybody so far. I retired from the Air Force July of this year, 23 years. I started out as in maintenance, cross-trained to be a flight engineer on C-130s that eventually turned out to where I retired. I was flying with the 89th Airlift Group in Maryland doing presidential airlift. And that really sums it up. I retired out of Maryland and excited again, like Michael was saying, talk about the transition and how much this meant to me to work with Veterans Florida.
All right, thank you, Drake. I cut out there a little bit, but I appreciate you sharing that. And like I said, last but not least, again, Adam, tell us a little bit about your service.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. So I'm currently still active duty. I got just under 2 months left in my enlistment. I'm doing SkillBridge up at IFAS in Milton. After boot camp, I went to Alexandria, Virginia, where I was in the ceremonial honor guard, where I was a pallbearer for about 1.5 years, and I did some 21 gun salute. And then after that, I went down to Sector St. Petersburg, and I became what we call a pollution responder, the marine science technician field, where we traveled from Perry, Florida down to Fort Myers and responded to any large petroleum or hazardous chemical spills in the navigable waters of the U.S.
All right. Thanks, Adam. Those are great stories. I think it says a lot about Florida with the diversity, geographic experience otherwise, but everybody ends up down here in Florida. So appreciate you guys sharing that with us. Let's go a little bit deeper into it now. Tell me, let's go back to when you were separating, when you were getting ready to separate. Tell me about your expectations when you were getting ready to separate, and then maybe tell us about the reality and what surprised you when you were making that transition. And Craig, we'll start with you again.
So I like I said, I really appreciate coming on here because I'm more of a cautionary tale. Again, I did 22 years in the Army. I was a medic. I joined at 33 years old, so I was never supposed to make it past my first enlistment. I ended up making the sergeant major list at 15.5 years. I literally made every rank first time go. I made E6 in 4 years. I made E7 in 8 years. I made E8 in 11 years. It was just, everything was going great for me. And then I ended up getting medically discharged. So I did the absolute minimum as far as transition assistance and linking up with other programs and stuff, because I'm a brigade sergeant major with a master's degree from the University of Alabama. Who wouldn't want to hire me? And it turns out nobody did. For 4 months, I was unemployed. And I ended up linking up with this company through some resources that I had. And again, my part of my transition too was not planning. And this is why I say I'm a cautionary tale. I medically retired out of Fort Irwin, California. I was the hospital command sergeant major there and moved all the way to Florida, where I had, no resources. I had no connections. But the company I'm with now really respects veterans, and 85% of our instructors are veterans. And you saw it, Joe. It's a pretty well-oiled machine full of a bunch of former ground pounders and airlifters and the like, who just want to give veterans a home. But the transition from me, I wasn't saying all that awesome stuff about me just to show how wonderful I am. It's because as good as you think you are, if you don't have a plan ahead of you, it means nothing. It was very humbling after doing all that and having all those badges and ribbons and competitions and this, that, and the other, to not be wanted. And that's not really the case. It's a case of getting with people that are with organizations who know how to help you write your resume and help you articulate your experience so that the civilian world can understand it. And once I was able to do that by linking up with groups like Veterans Florida and DAV and the like, the VA helped out. That does make a difference. So don't be afraid to ask for help if you're looking for a one-sentence answer as to how this transition went for me.
Yeah, we Veterans Florida, we help a wide variety of veterans, right? Different backgrounds and everything, but there is one unifying theme, and it is take advantage of resources like Veterans Florida and other groups when you get out. Because Craig, Yeah, we hear Craig's variations of Craig's story all the time. All right, Michael, tell us about your expectations when you got out and what the reality was. You're on the entrepreneur path, so it might be a little different. Can you share that with us?
Yes. So for me, the entrepreneur path started later, but when I got out, it was 2007. Clearly, I knew nothing about the recession, what was happening. They didn't forewarn me, right? There weren't resources that really helped me through the process of getting out, right? And at least saying, hey, listen, this might not be a good time, or what are the reasons, why are you doing it, right? The way that the society, in the military made it seem like, hey man, getting out, either you stay in or you get out, but you'll be fine because you'll use your skills. And the reality is I got out, I had a family, it was challenging, no one would hire me, right? It was tough. Then I start really seeing the recession and how things were changing, and if I thought there weren't jobs then, there definitely weren't jobs as things kept evolving, right? So the expectation was, oh, you know what, I'll get out, I'll be fine, things are great. The reality was totally different, right? And I didn't lean into the resources because I didn't know about the resources, right? That's the biggest challenge is knowing. And it wasn't until I started connecting with other veterans that were already out, or veterans that were still in, that were willing to help, right? That it started to kind of take shape, right? Then I got a job at Target Distribution. From there, I went back into the DoD, right? Instead of the military, started supporting the DoD. And from there, the journey, as those doors opened up, the journey has been different, right? It evolved from there. But the biggest thing is make sure you're using the community around you, right? Because that's going to help you. The community, the resources, don't be afraid to communicate the state that you're in, because that's only going to help you.
Yeah. Thank you, Michael. That's good. We are seeing the unifying theme on this. Drake, Drake, tell us again, what were your expectations of getting out, and what was the reality for you?
So Craig and Michael really summed it up, but especially Craig. It was, when you start talking about transition and thinking about it, it seems like there's plenty of people out there, especially in my unit, that seem to understand and know what to expect. But I kind of went a whole different path, I feel like, from a lot of my peers. In my previous, as most people know in the military, not many jobs transferred to the civilian world very easily. Mine especially did not. There's not a flight engineer civilian career path. And so my degree is in organizational management. So I just leaned on that and tried to network with enough people. But expectation wise, I had no idea it was going to be so difficult. And it really hit home when you start searching for jobs and looking for jobs and seeing what the compensation rate is compared to being in the military for so long. It was a challenge. It can be daunting and very terrifying. And I really didn't see the light at the end of the tunnel until working with Veterans Florida and the SkillBridge program and continuing that network, kind of like Michael was saying, just getting out there, putting your name out there, and that helped tremendously.
I appreciate that, Drake. And Adam, you're up next. Tell us the same thing. What was your expectations getting out? What was the reality?
Yeah, so I kind of liken it to going on travel with going through an airport. When you buy the ticket, when you're set to get out, you're all hippie, gung-ho for it. You're excited. And then when I started going through the transition assistance program, and the more I got closer to my SkillBridge date and closer to my transition, the more I learned and the more terrifying it got. And I realized I had to slow down and take things one step at a time. But like Craig said, without a plan, and I know his was kind of a one-off because he didn't see his medical discharge, but I saw mine coming all year. I started the transition back in January, and moving forward, I really got quite lucky with my job setup that I'm going to transition into. But once I got into the SkillBridge and everything started to slow down, and I figured this agriculture up in Milton with UF was going to be a smooth transition. And I started getting in well with the people there. And then I started looking for jobs. And like Drake said, it was kind of the compensation rates and seeing all these different avenues and applying for them and not getting the immediate response or getting denied. It made things quite a bit more like, oh, wow, the time's now. But I'm pretty excited now that things have worked out for me personally. But if it didn't quite work out, I would still be in that state where my hair's all in a frizzy.
Appreciate that. I like what you said about it slowing down. You hear that from athletes, right? Once they're confident and they're in the zone, things seem to slow down. And so I appreciate you saying that, right? Like once you got into a path that you knew was going to fit you well, then it was like, okay, I can breathe it. I can breathe a little bit again. So in your next round of questions, we talked about what your expectations were until you separated. Let's talk about that step afterwards. Like, what happened after what happened, I guess. Yeah, just talk about what happened after your last day in uniform. Talk to us about what worked for you to make that transition. And Craig, we'll start with you.
So again, my situation was not better. It's just different. Sitting in the seat, you have to wait for the Department of the Army to assign a command sergeant major to replace you. And because I was in the seat and we were the number one, hospital in the Army at the time at Fort Irwin, California, people who know Fort Irwin will think that is weird, but we were rated number one. And so I got picked up for the next level to be a command sergeant major at a division level and couldn't do that. So didn't have a plan. And it doesn't matter how good you are in the Army. When they decide to medically retire you, you have 90 days to get out. So I had 28 days to clear 21 years of CIF. And so it was, but again, as Adam was alluding to, I was fired up because, okay, I'm going to make this happen. I'm a medical guy, medicine, like Drake was talking about, not every job transitions smoothly to the civilian world. Well, medicine's supposed to. And I have an undergrad in healthcare administration, healthcare management. My master's is in human environmental science. I'm a FEMA certified disaster manager. I'm an EO leader. I'm an MRT trainer. And I went into a hospital setting to get hired. And they said, well, you were in the Army, right? Well, don't you just kill bad guys? And they literally thought I was a hunter killer. I said, I've hunted through a few MRE cases, but I'm not a hunter killer. And that became borderline debilitating for me. So it's the mental process. I was an infantry medic for most of my career. And again, joined at 33. So I had kind of an angry, hard outlook when I was in the Army and pretty mentally stable. And, it took a toll on me after I got out. But again, you can't quit at that point. You can't let the idea that you're not who you once were shape who you're going to be. So by just continuing to plug away at it, like I said, this fell into my lap, and it's been outstanding because I get to travel all over the United States, wherever I want to, whenever I want to. I've been everywhere in Florida, from Miami to Jacksonville, East and West side and Gulf side, and just talking to service members every day. And it turns out it doesn't matter how much money I make. It doesn't matter, what my title is. I literally have more experience than anyone in my company except for one person. And yet I'm not the highest on the payroll, but my job is very satisfying. And that's what you're looking for. That's end game right there. It's not, I was an awesome command sergeant major, so I want to be an awesome executive at this company making six figures. You get into the real world and you're happy with your job, nothing else matters.
All right. That's well put, Craig. Thank you. Michael, you took a entrepreneurial pathway. talk about that transition into there, the support you got, and maybe some commonalities between you getting out and what being an entrepreneur, starting your own business, how those kind of aligned.
Okay, yeah. So from the entrepreneur journey, right? Once I got out, understanding the struggles and trying to get a job, because I was an engineer, right? I was at 92nd Engineers out of Fort Stewart, and when we were deployed, all we would do is clear routes, right? So I did some of my job, but I didn't have enough skill once I got out for these companies to hire me. Oh, you need a particular license, or you need to get certified, and that was a struggle, right? Because they had so many people already that understood the industry, and here I am coming in, young, like, what do you know? They're looking at me like, what do you know? Why should we hire you, right? But I knew I had the dedication, right? So in that process, I started going to school. It took some years, but I started going to school. Being that I worked for the DoD eventually, I started seeing that, hey, you know what? Going to school, this is going to elevate me in going into a different space, right? And I decided on technology, something totally different. Everybody's like, what made you get into that, right? Like, and I was like, I don't know. I was tinkering with some stuff, and next thing you know, here I am, right? So by going to school and really, like Craig mentioned and Adam, regarding a plan, right? I didn't have a plan before when I got out, and I realized that was one of the things that I should have done, right? But I didn't know any better. Now I created a plan, a path forward, and throughout that plan, going to school, being promoted, I decided, you know what? I think it's time for me to start my own business. I decided to take the cybersecurity route for the reason that there's a lot of veterans and veterans that have families, right? That whether it's jobs or whether it's support, my goal was to have this organization so that way I can give back, right? And through VEI and Veterans Florida, VEI is a Veterans Entrepreneurship Initiative. It helps with they help with if you have an idea or a business that you want to launch, you will work with them and Veterans Florida, and it's been great, right? Because of the resources. This time around, I leaned on the resources that were available, and that has made me successful.
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, we've, thousands of veterans have gone through the Veterans Florida Entrepreneurship Program around the state. We have private partners. We have partners around the state that help out, and it's really cool. There's a lot of, each of the entrepreneur stories is really fantastic, and it's something that appeals to a lot of veterans. Drake, you were on the SkillBridge path. Tell us a little bit about your journey on there and how you ended up where you are.
So I thought of so we all, as everybody, how this thing sounds. If there's a chance of me finding a career path, because I had no idea which direction I would go, and interesting enough, I don't have a construction background at all, but that's where I ended up. So for me, doors were beginning to open and opportunities were starting to show up, and that was all thanks to SkillBridge. So for me, it started, I'll try to figure this out on my own. And somehow along the way, I found out about Veterans Florida. So I actually stepped out of my TAPS class, called the folks at Colby down at Veterans Florida, spoke to him for about 5 minutes. And it was the biggest relief ever throughout this process. I was like, man, if there's someone out there that's going to help me get through the paperwork and the process of submitting this, I should probably look into this. So I did, and pretty much set it, forget it. I set up a couple, like maybe 1 or 2 meetings, and then from there, Veterans Florida took over and set my SkillBridge up for me. Just made it the smoothest part of the transition. And because of that, that's why I now.
All right.
I don't have a job and happen to work. Hired officially by timeline wise, thanks to Veterans Florida,
All right. Hey, Drake, you're cutting out a little bit. I'm
I
gonna
had
wait till your signal gets
smooth
better. I'll come around.
transitions.
Okay. Thanks, Drake. I appreciate that. And appreciate the shout out to Veterans Florida. We didn't plant that question, but that's what we do. You know, we do this for no charge, and it is daunting. And SkillBridge especially can be really daunting. So that's why we're here, you know, to help you navigate not just where you want to go, not find a job, but to get you through the process as well. Adam, you're also SkillBridge. Talk a little bit about how you ended up on the ag path, and maybe you know, some things that are in the ag field, no pun intended, that appeal to you as a veteran.
Yeah, so I actually went to school prior to joining the Coast Guard. My undergrad was in environmental studies, and my master's was agriculture range and wildlife management. So when I heard about SkillBridge, and I started talking to a former lady there, Amy Dudley, at Veterans Florida, she told me about UF IFAS program and how they had branches all over the state. Well, I wanted to come back. I'm from Panama City, Northwest Florida. I wanted to come back to the Panhandle, so I chose Milton. And I fell in love when I got here. It was great. I've worked under 3 different professors about 2 months at a time. I just started under the 3rd one. I've been at their research facility up in Jay. I've been at their main campus at the PSC campus in Milton. And what I found when I hit the ground running was I got to know each one of their professors that I was working with. And I told them I wanted to help them achieve their goals. And during my time there, and about halfway through my time under each professor, they stopped me and said, "What do you want? You've already helped me do A, B, and C. Now, what can we provide for you?" And that was really the turning point where I realized, all right, my work ethic and showing them that I want to help provide for them really will come back and help me in the long run. Up here, they have a fantastic research facility up there at Jay where they do studies on peanuts, on cotton, on all different types of things. They have sod. They do, I've been doing forestry data collection up at the Blackwater River State Forest. After they did prescribed burnings, we went in and saw what burned, what's growing back, kind of with the land stewardship form. And that's what I really fell in love with. I kind of moved away from agriculture and growing and farming towards the forestry area. And when I was doing that, I met someone up at the paper mill, and he actually recruited me for my job because of my interests. So there is a ton that UF, especially the IFAS, can provide. For anybody interested in going in SkillBridge or just going through Veterans Florida program with UF IFAS, I highly recommend it, and definitely ask them what they want to achieve. It worked out for me.
Thanks, Adam. Elena, I believe, dropped our URL in there if anybody wants to. Obviously, if you want to talk to us about how we can help you in your career search, you go to veteransflorida.org. You can apply right there. And we're going to do one more round of questions, but I want to make sure that everybody watching has a chance to ask some questions as well. And again, you go down to that lower right-hand corner, you'll see a triangle, square, and a circle. You click that, then you click the Q&A, and then a button will come up for you to ask any questions. So if anybody have any questions live right now, you can jump on in. Just kind of go around one more time. I mean, and I think for each of you, like, do you, well, Craig, I'm going to individualize you a little bit. Craig, you work with veterans. I mean, it's what you do at Learning Alliance. And is there a common thread of I don't know, challenges or questions that you see from guys who are trying to come in there and start their career through Learning Alliance?
So a lot of what we deal with is, again, like guys are like, well, you know, I was IT, or I was a cook, or I was, you know, airfield management or something like that. And, you know, I don't know anything about telecom. And the easiest segue for that for me is like, well, I was a medic. So I didn't know anything about telecom either. And yet now here we are. I think there's that. I think there's a misconception that once a service member is in the service, they can only do what they did in the service.
Mhm.
And one of my philosophies when I was a senior leader in the military was, for the Army, we're all soldiers. Then you get to pick your MOS. But when you go to basic training, you're not cooking. You're not, putting bandages on people. You're learning how to fire your weapon and move in formation and interact with your fellow soldiers. So it's getting out of the mindset is that I'm only good for this. It's like, no, you are good for anything. And like, what I love about telecom and why I've ended up staying in it is like I said, I get to talk to soldiers every day and it's fantastic, but it's getting out of that mindset that they can only do one thing. And they don't realize that an E4 in the military is a leader of somebody else. And that will help you go places. And they don't even realize they have the skills that they have. So you got to find an organization that actually feeds that. What I found was there's a lot of organizations out there that say they're military friendly. And that's because they want people who, can do the job and are physically fit to do the job. Oh, by the way, they happen to be in the military. And there's some that actually seek military people for the education level and the leadership skills that they've developed.
Yeah, Craig, you said something I think is really important there. Like all four of our panelists today are doing things that you didn't do when you were in, right? You had to pivot to a whole different path, a whole different set of skills. So on one hand, that might seem daunting, but on the other hand, it's encouraging that that these guys have done it and you can do it too, right? You got out, you're confused, but you can go down that different path and succeed. So that's an excellent point, Craig. Michael, tell us a little bit about your business and what you're doing to help veterans, help veterans along the way. Yeah, you're on mute.
Let's try
There you
this
go.
again. Let's try
You're
this
good.
again.
You're all good.
Yeah, so like I said, we're a cybersecurity and technology company. And the way that we're currently helping veterans is we're looking into partnering with the different organizations to help veterans with their ideas and different goals that they may have, right? Through mentorship or even internships, right? If that's something that they desire. But our biggest thing is helping them through the process and understanding, hey, listen, just because you got out doesn't mean that you left it all behind, right? You have a community. We act as connectors, right, for those veterans as well. We come in and we try to steer them in the right direction regarding different resources that are out there, and showing them that they're not alone. Right. That's a big deal for me. Right. Making sure that they understand that there's a bigger community out here that's willing to lend them a hand and even attend those events, invite them so they can start meeting and communicating with people that I may know, that I know that can help them.
Thanks, Michael. I appreciate that. It is interesting. When you get out, you're an unpaid ambassador, right, to veterans who are going to follow you back into the workforce. Drake, I'm not sure if you can hear me. Tell me a little bit about what ESA does and how important veterans are to supporting their mission, if you can hear me. There you go.
Hey, I can hear you. Hopefully this connectivity is a little better.
It's all good.
So ESA has been huge for me. It kind of goes along with what Craig and Michael are talking about. Like I mentioned earlier, I have no construction background, and they heard my story. They heard my just being in the military for so long, and took advantage of that in a sense of they gave me an offer that was the way the company operates and what they stand behind aligned with my same values and what I was looking for to start another career. And it's been a blessing. So every day that I've gone to work, they took a chance on me, and fortunately it worked out. Our company is, I think there's between 20 and 30 veterans in the company of just under 100 employees, and they lean on the veterans. And it's a veteran-owned company. We do all federal construction, so anywhere from VA centers to DoD facilities, all over the U.S. from East Coast to the West Coast. The company is definitely growing. Just transitioned from small business to large business in January, and just looking forward to the new opportunities that are going to come up. But I'll also add that if there's anybody on the call that just needs to talk to somebody about the process, how things works from TAPS to SkillBridge, going into a new career field that you have no plans of or even considered, there's options out there, and you're worth you have way more value and worth, mostly from your time in the military, but just in general, you don't spend that much time in the military and come out empty-handed. There's a lot of benefit to that.
Thanks, Drake. Adam, before we get to you, just want to make sure everybody has one more chance to ask a question here. We've got a good number of attendees. Looks like we just got one, but remember, if you want to ask a question, go to the triangle, square, circle in the lower right, click on Q&A, and then click on ask a question. Adam, once again, tell me a little bit about, the Panhandle super military, right? The 3 counties out there. Okaloosa, I think, is actually 1 in 5 adults or veterans. And in Escambia and Santa Rosa, it's like 1 in 7 adults or veterans there. You're from that area too. So like you're seeing veterans all the time trying to find their way through there. Talk about your next posting briefly, and how you can help veterans, or how you're probably already helping veterans in that area find the right path.
Yeah. So my next posting, I'm really going to start off in January. I'm finishing up right now with my SkillBridge, and I actually work with quite a few veterans over there, and they're trying to get their children into the military. So I'm kind of on the front end of that. I do need to move more towards trying to help veterans like you 3 fellows are. But I'm actually still trying to actively recruit to bring more members into the military and encourage them, especially nowadays when everybody wants to be like a TikTok superstar or social media famous. I want them to get in and get their life together and explain to them how well the military can be for people if you're going to spend only 4.5 years in like I have, or if you're going to retire like Craig or Drake. And then I wasn't even aware of your program, Michael. I might reach out to you after and see how I can help in any type of way. But I really, Joe, to be honest with you, that's kind of eye-opening. I wasn't thinking about helping veterans as much because I'm still transitioning on my veteran tag. But I have been trying to actively recruit and get people in so that one day they could be a veteran.
Hey, that's great, guys. We'll give one more round for questions. Again, you go to lower right, triangle, square, circle, click on that, click on Q&A, and then click on ask a question. And there's a lot of good information here. These guys are great. They're smart. They're focused. They want to help. For the ease of we do this for the state. We do it for the nation. We do it for service members around the world. You can start with us. Go to veteransflorida.org, fill out the application. It's not very long or difficult, and you'll get a one-on-one outreach from our team. And of course, it is at no cost, and we can connect. We can directly help you, or we can connect you with folks who can also help you. Don't see any other questions. Let's wrap this up with 2 or 3 sentences, Craig. Let's sum up this call. What would you tell to someone who's getting out and wants to come to Florida? Go.
So again, I honestly moved to Florida quite simply because my daughter was here with my three grandkids. And but what I learned is that there are little things that happen in Florida that the state of Florida really designs itself around helping veterans. I looked up on all the websites and whatever, what the best states were for retirement. It's just interesting. The only state that was top 5 in every single list that I went to was Florida. And with that being said, you got a group like Veterans Florida that comes out, that takes the time to actually reach out to you individually. Like, I had people from Veterans Florida contact me. I didn't contact Veterans Florida. They contacted me when they found out I was a veteran and I was here. That's a difference maker to me. And so it's just being, my recommendation is just, the military is all about change. But when you're changing from the military to civilian, we mock civilians all the time when we're in the military. We can't help ourselves. It's just, as natural as making fun of Marines for eating crayons. But the reality is that we don't like to admit that we're lost. And you have a group of individuals that went from living with their families and being told what to do to going into the military and being told what to do. And then all of a sudden they're told, okay, now get out and go figure out what to do. And that is very, very difficult. Like, Michael and I joined the Army the exact same year, 2002. The difference is like I said, I was 34 when I showed up as an E2 medic at the 101st Airborne Division and deployed 6 months later. So, not saying I'm better, I was just older. And so my experience was different. So you take that experience and you just make the best out of it that you can. But you never, ever, just like in the military, you never do anything on your own. And that's what I really appreciate. That's why I was more than willing to take my time today to speak at this, because I have seen Veterans Florida do stuff that makes life easier for veterans. And that's what I do with my organization. We take in veterans, I give them purpose, direction, and motivation, and a actual career path forward. And that's what I think is why when we're retired, what our major focus should be is help those that are in our situation.
Greg, appreciate that. Appreciate what you say about Florida too. It's not just talk. Florida really is the most veteran-ready state here. Whether it's something like a Veterans Florida, whether it's a lot of the benefits that lot of state-focused benefits for veterans too. But it's a pleasure for us to do this. Michael, you went through, you found the entrepreneurial path. Just briefly, tell us a little bit about what being in Florida maybe helped make this easier. And, again, 2 or 3 sentences that you would tell to folks who are considering moving to Florida.
First and foremost, if you need resources, reach out to Veterans Florida. They're there for you, right? To help you through that transition. They will connect you with other resources that they have to make you successful. Florida, in my opinion, is the best state ever, right? Because they're pouring into veterans, like from the different resources that the state provides to how easy it is for the nonprofits to assist you, and even starting a business, right? They're very helpful. There's a lot of programs, like I mentioned, the Veteran Entrepreneurship Initiative, big on helping you start your business and push you to be successful. The one piece of advice that I'm going to give you is to stay connected with other veterans, because that's going to provide you the motivation when you feel like quitting. Don't be afraid to reach out to somebody. It's important. I know we all go through it, whether it's family, whether it's jobs, but sometimes talking to somebody that's been there, just like all of us here, right? It took a commitment to serve this country, dedication, and will. So we're all here for each other. Feel free to reach out. Joe will share my contact information. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that. I do. Drake, you're on the way to New Orleans. You're going to see a lot of people there. What would you tell someone who's interested about veteran already out, someone getting out? What would you tell them about coming to Florida?
I'd agree with everybody. I mean, you're not going to find a better, more supportive state, especially up in the Panhandle. There's so much veteran support. I mean, it's everywhere. Like everybody else already mentioned, you got to continue that networking and spreading the good news, I guess, or the good word. But there's so many resources. I mean, everybody on this call right now can call any of one another, and you'll get someone else's idea or somebody else's path. Veterans Florida for me, like I mentioned before, is huge. I mean, it's where I can plan and set myself up with a degree and, experience, but you got to have somebody to make that transition. You got to have somebody to be that. There's the gap. So same for me, like put my information out there, and Joe has it, and I'll happily talk to anybody and help them where we can. Our company hires veterans all the time, and we'll continue to do that.
Thank you, Drake. I'm going to drop the best email address for everyone here. It's info@veteransflorida.org. Again, it's info@veteransflorida.org. Adam, you're last up. You're back and clean up here. You're from Florida. You came back to Florida. You obviously, in the interim, you traveled around. Besides it being home, what was your reception when you said, okay, I'm ready to come back and start my civilian life in January here in Florida? What made that easier to do?
Yeah, so going back to the question you asked me before, kind of bleeds in with this answer. Up here in the Panhandle, from Pensacola over to Panama City, we are just littered with different military bases, from Tyndall on the east side all the way to NAS on the west side. And they have a huge pool of veteran events, from air shows to July 4th firework displays. They'll just have cookouts on a random Friday night, get-togethers. They have big communities online. I like it. It's a great community up here. And as far as Florida goes, our state has some of the cleanest air, cleanest water. We have one of the best tourism industries. And right behind that for our state is agriculture. It's our second biggest industry, but tourism kind of trumps it all because everybody wants to come to Florida. So I would suggest anybody looking for a place to join a veterans program or to come and retire, unless you like the snowy mountains, Florida's the way to go. We have some great land and great people.
All right. Thanks, guys. We'll wrap it up. I really appreciate y'all joining us. I appreciate your service. I appreciate you taking your time to, we've got a lot of folks watching this right now. They'll be able to access it later on YouTube. But thank you, guys. Appreciate you taking your time. Again, for everyone watching, if you're interested in our services, go to veteransflorida.org and you can apply there. And if you have any direct questions, please email us at info@veteransflorida.org. Gentlemen, thank you very much. I appreciate your time. Safe travels. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone watching.